It's Rio. It is Friday. I'm in my office, just finished grading and setting up for week 8. Can you believe it? Week 8 is already upon us. This applies to probably only a few of you, but it's worth saying just to make sure you understand. Week 9, after week 8, is that part in the semester where you have to make a decision about the classes that you're in. And so, what this really means is that if you want a grade in a class, then hang out. But if you don't hang out and continue working after week 9, you have no other option but to get a grade. I probably made that much more complicated than it needed to be. So it's a last drop date coming up next week. So keep that in mind. Again, it only probably applies to a few of you, and the people that applies to probably aren't even watching anyway. That happens, just the way of the world. So many of you, actually 2 of you, took advantage, and actually 3 of you took advantage of the Steve Wozniak tickets that I had available. I think at this point I don't have any more, but if you happen to have missed it, next Thursday night, that will be in week 8, at 7 o'clock, Steve Wozniak, which if you don't know who Steve Wozniak is, oh my gosh, you got to find out because he's the co-creator, the co-founder of Apple Computer, really the geek behind the marketing wizard who was Steve Jobs. He's going to be in town next Thursday, and I'm excited that a couple of you got tickets and are going to be going. So, DevFest, October 17th. Please be hopefully getting that on your schedule and signing up for that. So this week we dive into some more hopefully fun topics. Seems like most of you got a good experience using the Google Drive for hosting. I think many of you didn't even realize that was an option. And I read somewhere that that may go away. So know that that's not a permanent option, and there are definitely other options that we'll cover and talk about. As a matter of fact, I think I'm going to end up having set you all up with an account on an actual host that I have, so you get the experience of using full hosting as well as some of the other stuff like GitHub pages that we'll do. But this week we're going to be diving in to GitHub. What an amazing technology focused site for those of us in development, because really GitHub is like Facebook for developers. If you haven't heard that, that's really what it's like. So GitHub is the website where you can publish repositories. So this week you're learning about GitHub in the lecture, and I'm going to give you a hands-on experience in a minute. But this is something that you definitely want to know about for getting code for various things that you will use, packages, website, frameworks, plugins. I mean, there is just a ton of stuff out there. So we're going to have the current topics is going to be talking about semantic versioning, something that once you hear it, you'll go, oh yeah, that makes sense. But until you've kind of heard the breakdown of how when you look at a version of something, they've come up with how they number things, until you hear somebody give that talk, it may not have really sunk in when we talk about major versions, minor versions, and patches. So let's turn to the screen and take a look at what you got to do. All right, so you have your lecture. Seems like these are, hopefully you're getting, your notes indicate you're getting a lot. Now, I do understand, by the way, that Linda does provide a text version that you could be cutting and pasting. Hopefully you're really seeing the value of consuming this content in the way that you can to be the highest advantage for you. So let's talk about this one, semantic versioning. So there's a wonderful little video I've provided here that gives the talk about understanding when you look at a version of something, what that means, right? And it really is valuable to understand this from looking at software, if you ever develop software, understanding that, but just having this as something that is now in your skill and knowledge base. So I want you to watch the video, and then I want you to go find some software or packages, right? So the other thing I almost wanted to introduce this week was something called NPM, Node Package Manager, which we'll probably do in the coming weeks, just to give you a knowledge of the amazing stuff that's out there for you to take advantage of. And the reason I bring this up is that if you search Node Package Manager, there's a whole website that talks about stuff that you can take advantage of, as well as GitHub that I just talked about before, right? So you could actually search GitHub, and I think there's a popular or trending on GitHub. So actually what we'd want to do here is go to Google and type GitHub. Right, so GitHub is the site where you would publish, and you're going to learn about repositories. You've already learned about them hopefully by now, but in case you haven't, popular or trending. There we go, trending, that's what it was. So you can kind of look at, it was kind of fun today as I came in here. There's something called Clipboard.js, and I looked at who did it. Zeno Rocha, the guy coming to DevFest. Is that awesome or what? So you can look at this stuff. Again, anything. Could be plugins, could be Word version, could be your Apple version, right? So in this case, they talk about what version they have here. And I'm just scrolling down to find the version that he has published. I should have looked at this before, but I didn't, because there should be a version somewhere up in here. You can find it. That's the README file. JSON version 1.13 probably is the version, or the version of the JSON Bower install, but that's the idea. Find something. So if I was to look at my Mac, right? So if I was to look at my Mac, 10.10.5. So what I want you to do is find something. I don't care what it is. Find the version and then find, right? So like, what was the major things that happened in 10 of the software that you're looking at? What was in this case, go back, right? What was in the minor versions and what were in the patches? That is of the version that you're looking at. Again, this could be any software, but after you watch the video, I want you to provide, a screenshot of something that you're looking at as far as software versioning, and then describe, right, to the best of your ability what that indicates, what that version really indicates, or what is implied in that version, like version 10 of Mac OS. What was some of the major things that we got? What were some of the minor fixes that were in the minor, what were in the minor, and then what was in the patches. So just an experience of doing that. Okay, so the other thing, again, don't forget your replies, and hopefully you're getting used to this new schedule. It seems like many of you are. That, right, your post is due here, right? The replies then won't be due until the following Thursday, right? So so your lecture is on Thursday. On Monday night is your replies, and then on the following, is that right? Oh yeah, that's week 7. Week 8. So on the 15th, when your next lecture is, that's when the replies will be due. Now, if I do see you doing replies, I will grade them, but until I either see the replies are done or we get to that deadline, I won't. All right, so now let's talk about this. So now if you haven't, and I put this on here, maybe create your first, we call it repo for short repository, okay? So I'm going to walk you through this. And it's really, when you start learning about version control, they start talking about repositories and creating these things on your local computer. So I want to walk you through here what you need to do. I want you to create a repository. I want you to stage some changes and then commit those changes into your repository. And then you'll print out what we call your log just to show that you did this. Okay. So, as before, some of you are on Mac, some of you are on PC, so we have to cover both. Let's cover the PC side, because I had not really dealt with this on the PC side, so it was good for me to actually go in there and do it. So on the PC side, what I did is I went into a website called, and I just searched for this. So Git Windows, right? So Git the version for Windows. This is what I searched for. I found this website, and what it allows you to do is based on your version, right? So I didn't need it again. Thank you very much. I thought I wanted to get it again. So based on the version of your operating system. So if you don't know that, right, you can go to right click, go to properties. I think this is a 32-bit of Windows. So the way you can tell, 32-bit of Windows, it's a little older because of the processor. So for your version of Windows, and you can also put this on a thumb drive, which is awesome, you install it, right? So you just basically do a straight install here. And then afterwards, you give a couple new commands or a couple new icons. And I had to actually go find some of these. So if you don't see them right away on Windows, just type Git, and then it will show you Git Bash, Git graphical user interface, and Git command. So I would suggest you use Git command. Okay, and the reason is there is a graphical client, and what that means is just like a graphical user interface. You can do that, but I suggest you actually start getting used to the command line. I know it's something I'm making myself do more, so I get used to it. So once you're here, the commands I'm going to show you on the Mac side are the identical commands to on the PC, except when you want to look at a list of items on the PC, you type dir. On Linux or in Mac, you type ls. So so this is one thing I have to keep in my head between the two, is just when I want a list of things. So again, I'm going to switch back over to the Mac, but all the commands I'm going to show you on the Mac side can be used here on this Git command line. Okay? All right, so let me move back. So now let me get out of here. There we go. Okay, so now on the Mac side, there's this lovely thing called terminal, right? So once you install, which by the way, installing Git on a Mac is as easy as it is on Windows. It's even easier. The only thing might be if you have terminal open and you haven't installed Git, you'll want to go install it, close the terminal, and reopen. Now, how do you know you have Git installed? You just type git status. Okay, so git status in this case, if it tells you there's not a repository, what that means is that you are actually running it. I wonder if there's a git version. Sometimes most commands have let me see if sometimes they don't. Most of the time they have a version, but Git evidently did not. So if I just do git status and I get like this, it tells me, and I'll make this a little larger, okay? So that's the first thing, just have Git installed, and the lecture walks you through that. Actually, the lecture this week is with Ray Villalobos, who I got to be with over the summer for a couple weeks, and he's awesome as well. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to have my Git open, and I'm also going to have my file manager open, and I'll show you why in a minute. Okay, so what I'm going to do is walk you through the process of creating a repository, putting in where I'm going to use Sublime, right? And then I'm going to create a file. I'm going to make changes to the file. I'm going to commit those into the staging, and then I'm going to commit those, or put them into staging and then commit them into the repository. Okay, so that's the work we're going to do in the last part of this video. So let's do that. Oh, and I always like to have up just commands, so if in case I forget them, right? So I did a real quick search, Git in 5 minutes, so it's pretty easy. So what I'm going to do again is I'm going to go, and the first thing, if you're on the Windows, it's directory. On Mac, it's ls. So I can see it dropped me into my home directory on my Mac. I'm going to do cd documents, right? ls again, just to see what's in there. And I had created something earlier, but I'm going to make a directory. Okay, I think it's let's see. And I'm going to call it CIT82. Okay. Very good. On Linux, it's I think it's mkdir, and if not, I can just do it through the file manager in a second. Oh, that was it, mkdir, if you didn't see that on, and it's md. See again, right, this similar command, does something similar, but it's a different command. So now if I list directories, and by the way, if I do clear, right, so it will actually clear out. So let me just show you that if I list my directories, I will see CIT82 as a directory. Okay, so now I'm going to change to CIT82, the directory, and that command is the same. And now there's no files in here. Boom, there's nothing in here, right? So the first thing I'm going to do is this git init, and what that does is create the repository on your local computer. Okay, so let me do this, right? Get this back. So I'm going to do git init. So what that basically does is it creates a place on this directory structure, and you even see it here, and it's a hidden directory called .git. So that is a Git directory, okay? So now if I do git status, and it's always good after you do a command to do git status, and it tells you where you're at. So we say we're on the master branch, which we're not going to get into branches really on this course. It's really just an introduction. Initial commit, there's nothing to commit, there's nothing in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn to Sublime, right? And I'm going to do, and by the way, there's a couple ways you could do this. Hopefully now that you've gotten a little more experience with Sublime, right? I could bring in the directory, right? There's a couple ways I could do this. I can go to my documents. Do you remember this from the video, is that I can just drop the directory right in to here, and then I have it. So that's just really fun, quick way to do things, right? You can also just do file open, and then open the folder. So now that I'm in here, right, I'm going to do a new file. I'm going to call it, and this is important because in the James Williamson, he used an intro.htm, and that really isn't the kind of first file you'd use. You would really do something called, make sure you're in the right directory, index.html. HTML works as well, but we'll do that, hit save. So now that we have this one file in here, right, we've created a file. We could just show you this just so you know, git status. So Git says, oh, you have a file. You haven't added it to the repository or to the staging, because there's creating the file, there's putting it in staging, and then there's committing it. So I haven't done anything to the file yet, so I could go ahead and at this point commit it, right? Even though there's nothing in here, I could go ahead and hit add, right? And that's what it's telling me to do. And by the way, Git will often tell you, just doing git status, what it wants you to do. Okay, so even before I create that, let me just do that again. So now I'm going to do git, not again, but I'm going to do git add, right? And then I'm going to do index.htm. So what that did is it just added it to the staging area. Now I do git status, and it's going to tell me, oh, you have a new file in the staging area called, it doesn't really say staging, but that's what it is, called index, right? So now it's like putting it in a location so that if I wanted to pull it back later to say, no, I didn't want to commit that yet, because in truth, when you're developing software, you often need to roll back, okay? But in this case, we're just showing you conceptually how this stuff works. So now that I have it in staging, now I'm going to commit it. I'm going to say git commit. I think that's right. And again, this is where, you know, having these commands when you're new to it, right? So git commit and then -m, right? And adding files. And the other thing you can do is you can just copy and paste some of this commands, which is kind of fun as well. I think you can. Let's go. Actually, let's go try to do this because I wanted to see. Yeah, so I could actually copy and paste that. So git commit is going to take whatever file I have in staging, and I'm going to say, in this case, this is the message. Uh-oh. So I'm actually going to get rid of what's between the quotes, because you could type all this out. And I thought, you know, I just want to show you different ways, because often the more you get in command line, the more you'll be doing longer commands. So I'm going to say creating index.htm file. Okay, make sure that quote is at the end. Make sure I -m and -m. If you don't do the -m, it throws you into a place to put a message, and it's just a pain. So there we go. So we create, so now we have the git index, or the index.html as our first commit into the repository. And if I do git status, right, I'm good. Nothing to commit. Everything's good to go. You can go ahead and continue on. Okay, but you can do, and you will end up doing, a Git log that will show you, because I want you to at least do 2 commits. Okay, so let's go back to our file. So now let's actually make a change. So hopefully you learned a little about init. So I'm going to do explanation which creates the HTML structure for a page, right? I'm going to say my first repo. Okay, and again, you know, it's not that you have to create anything large here, and I'm going to hit save, right? So as soon as I save that file, I go back to my directory, I type git status, and it says, oh, you have changes, right? So now I could, if I wanted to, go back, grab that first blank index file and bring it back into my directory if for whatever reason I needed to. But in this case, I just want to give you the experience of doing it. So we do git add index. So now I'm going to add it to the staging. So you have to create it or change it, add it to staging, and then commit it. So then, and by the way, you can use the arrow keys to go back to other commands that you've done. So I could do, I keep getting the wrong. So in this case, I want to go back to my commit command. Or in fact, let's do this. Let me do this. Let's do this. I'm going to actually do something a little different here. I'm going to go git status. I'm going to do clear. And the reason I'm going to do clear is that I want you to have a clear screen when I do this, because it might be a little hard to see. So I'm going to use my arrow keys up. I'm going to go in. Oh, there's an example of a commit command, or a commit, and I'm going to do updated index.htm. Okay, so now that I've given it, and by the way, I got to make sure, there we go, HTML. So make sure everything's there. Cool. So now if I do git status, Excellent. So now all you have to do, so now that you've done that, now you just prove it by putting it in Canvas, right? So now you do a Git Log, and this shows me you at least, so these are hash, what we call, there's other words for them. So all you'd have to do is copy this, right? So you can copy this. I'm going to do Control C. And now we're going to come over. We're almost, believe it or not, done. This is another one of those making sure you do the steps, right? And then you can say, you'll write something, my Git. And you could put this up on Google Doc. That wouldn't be a bad thing, but I'm okay. Well, I like to be consistent, but my Git log, paste it in here, right? So this shows you, cool, there it is. And then make sure you do some writing here, right? So this is where you're writing about doing this particular work, right? So something like maybe my experience. And then make sure these look a little different, right? So there's some nice formatting in here that you can do colors, right? You can do paragraphs, like, and make these to where I can clearly see the difference between them. All right, I know that's a lot, okay? I really recognize that that's quite a bit, but it's really not as much because what we had to do is install Git, and then I showed you how to showed you how to create a repository on your local system, showed you how to create a file, how to stage it, how to commit it, and then how to modify, stage it, and commit it, which, by the way, there's commands that you could have bypassed the staging and went right to commit, but these are all things as you do more time on task with this that you'll get. Enough for a Friday. By the way, I am thinking about the final project. I think I might talk about that next week. Hopefully, we'll talk about it then. So have a great weekend, everyone. Peace out.